As you may have heard, there's something really big happening in Europe right now. The United Kingdom has cast a vote that will have them exiting the European Union in the next 2 years. And people are losing their goddamn minds. The Prime Minister has resigned. The stock markets have crashed. The pound is losing all kinds of value. And a lot of people think that this is the start of the end. It means that hatred and intolerance, particularly around the immigration issue, has won. And the evil, nefarious right wing is taking over. And since we can draw a lot of parallels between what is happening in the UK and what is happening in the US, does this mean that hate and intolerance are winning? Or could this all be part of a bigger picture? Could this even be part of the Ascension process? Stay tuned for today's video and find out. Hey, my happy shiny puppies in training. This is Melody Fletcher, author of Deliberate Receiving. Finally, the universe makes some freaking sense. And today's burning question comes to us from Awesome Dudette, who writes, I'm based in the UK, and we've seen some change this past week. From voting to leave the European Union Parliament, our Prime Minister resigning, the leader of the opposition about to be ousted, a leadership race for the next Prime Minister, a racist hijacking the Leave campaign, and people from both sides of the EU referendum saying some truly horrible and inaccurate things about people. I've seen the worst in some people this week. I felt that a lot of people are trying to push their views on others, and many are in a state of panic and despair that they're refusing to move on from. Change happens, so I've let go and will ride it out with nothing but love and positivity. But I got to thinking about the spiritual changes I began to go through late last year. I linked this to Ascension. Could the changes across Europe be part of this process? Well, Awesome Dudette, thank you so much for your wonderful and timely question. And yes, of course, this is part of the Ascension process, as everything is. And again, we can draw some parallels between what's happening in the UK and what is happening in the US. There's a lot of upheavals on both sides of the pond, and of course, all over the world. And this is all part of that process. And if you're watching this and you're not entirely sure what the hell I'm talking about when I say Ascension, then go back to some of my Ascension videos. I'll put the link in the description for the Ascension series, and you can watch those videos and get a really good description. But in a nutshell, we are all raising our vibration. We are ascending, which does not mean that we're about to be picked off by aliens or gods or anything like that. We're going to stay here on Earth in the physical, but we are essentially moving into a whole new age where the paradigm of how we show up in this world, of how we deal with each other, is changing, and it's changing by about 180 degrees. It is just flipping. The polarity is flipping. And so we're going to move from a place where we deal with each other in competition or contention and moving to a place of cooperation. We're moving from fear to love. And this is a really big change. And a change this big is going to come with some upheaval. It's also going to come with a purging process. Now, I've talked about this purging process in a former Ascension video, where, you know, when you raise your vibration, all of the stuff that doesn't match that, all of your fears and limitations are going to come up to the surface to be released. Now, this works on a micro and a macro level. On a micro level, it happens in your own life. And what happens is if you have some resistance that you're not aware of, or that you've been ignoring, that you have not wanted to deal with because it's been too scary or too ugly, it will start to manifest in bigger and bigger ways and get your attention. The same thing happens on a macro level within a country, within a society, within a culture, and within the entire planet. And so what you see right now happening on the planet, and particularly this thing in the UK, is a huge representation of that, and a perfect example of that is a kind of purging up of the fears and limitations. And what has been happening there, and what has been happening in the United States for a long, long time, is that we've been sort of pushing the people that we consider to be right-wing off to the side because we don't like what they're saying. And when you just stamp people as idiots and say, you know, you're racist, you're prejudiced, you're an idiot, you're uneducated, we're not going to listen to you, they don't just go away. That shit doesn't just dissipate into thin air. It festers and gets worse. What we haven't been doing is listening. So people have been complaining and saying, hey, we have needs too, we have rights too, we have thoughts too. And because we don't agree with those thoughts, and because those thoughts are ugly and hateful, we've decided that we're not going to listen to them. And of course, the right wing has been doing the same thing, the left wing and the conservatives and the liberals are all doing it to each other. And you can definitely make that argument for either side. So insert whatever terms you want into either side, it's going to still be accurate. Neither side has been listening to each other. But I'm speaking to this from the point of view of this question and from the point of view of what a lot of people are so afraid of in the UK right now, which is that the right wing, people who are racist, people who are afraid, people who are prejudiced, have taken over and have won. And that's not what's happening. What is happening is that something that has been getting ignored for a long, long time has come up in a way that we cannot ignore it anymore. Now you have to listen. Now you have to take it seriously. Now you have to deal with it. And the way to deal with this kind of fear, and that's what it is, it's fear. Yeah, it's powerlessness that has festered for generations, is not to push it away, not to chastise it, not to judge it. You have to listen to it. You don't have to agree with it, but you have to listen to it because everybody has a right to their perspective. And when you look at this from an energy point of view, whatever your reaction is to what is going on in the world, that's a part of you that still needs to be healed. So if it bothers you that these people are out there saying these things, that means that there's a part of you, inside you, personally you, that is not being heard. There's an aspect in you that has not been integrated. And so when you bring all of yourself to the table, all aspects of you to the same table, you have to give every aspect of you a voice. You cannot shut any part of yourself out because you don't like what that part is saying, because that part sounds ignorant, or that part sounds shameful, or you're guilty about the thoughts that you're having. You have to bring it all to the table and air out the dirty laundry so that you can come to agreement within yourself. And when I use the word agreement, I use it very, very, very specifically. Because for me, the word agreement is not that you're agreeing to do something for somebody else or agreeing to do something for yourself. That's permission. When I use the word agreement, I'm talking about being on board with, meaning that all aspects of you have to be on board with, and all aspects of you have to be honored by the decisions that you make, have to be honored by the perspective that you adopt, which means that you cannot really fully adopt a point of view and operate from that perspective until you have come to agreement with all aspects of you. And right now in the world, there are a lot of aspects who have not been heard, particularly because, well, we don't like what they're saying. And that same thing happens within ourselves. We don't like what certain aspects of us are saying, and so we squash them and push them away. And they fester and they get bigger, and then they manifest in a way that we cannot ignore them anymore. So that's all that's happening here, is this stuff is coming up in a way that we cannot ignore it anymore. We have to deal with it. And in my opinion, the way that I see it, and you may want to take this on too, it may resonate with you or not, is when you are facing this kind of fear, you have to listen. You have to give it a voice. When you say to somebody, you don't get to have an opinion, you don't get to speak, you're just wrong, that makes them come at you even harder. But when you say to somebody, tell me why you feel the way you feel, and you approach them with no judgment and compassion, it is amazing that you get a completely different reaction. And I have seen this again and again and again in my own life, in my clients' lives, that when you approach people this way and you truly come at them with a place of no judgment and full compassion, what happens is that they open up, they become authentic, and you are able to find agreement, meaning they are honored by the end perspective, and you are honored by the end perspective. This is not compromise. This is not capitulation. This is listening, opening up, and coming to full agreement with the other. Everyone is on board, fully on board. Their needs are met. Their fears are addressed. And I think it's time that we start listening to each other. I think it's time that we start coming into agreement with each other, that we no longer squash each other from all corners of the globe. And, well, I think that this is a wonderful opportunity to do so. Or one could also say we're sort of being forced into it. Potato, potato. If you're watching this anywhere but on my blog, then please click through to the site and join the conversation on deliberatereceiving.com. That's where all the goodies are, that's where all the free content is, and that's where you will find the Happy Shiny Puppy Army, my tribe of incredibly powerful, conscious, and like-minded creators who cannot wait to meet you. That's also where you can submit your own question for me to possibly answer in a video like this. This has been this week's Q&A. I'm Melody Fletcher, and I will see you next week. Bye!